one particular mindset shift that I have been trying to cultivate is seeing our life and where we're at in seasons. There can be one view where we're like, we have to constantly be in summer season, always blooming and constantly doing and constantly making money and constantly working hard on all these things. But what if we actually don't? What if there are seasons we go through? And maybe you have a summer season for a couple years, and then actually maybe you have a bit of wintering where you're going inwards. Instead of external work, you're doing a lot of internal work and you're coming back inside. And that wintering season might be a month, it might be 6 months, it might be a year, it might be a couple years. But trusting in the value that that season is giving you, that each season has its usefulness and purpose.
Welcome to Practically on Purpose, the podcast for high achievers who are ready to explore the space between ambition and alignment. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to someone who has profoundly impacted my journey. Catherine Pao, holistic leadership coach, creativity mentor, and former tech exec turned intuitive guide. She helps ambitious creatives and leaders reconnect with their inner wisdom, integrate structure and flow, and live in deeper alignment. Catherine was my coach during a pivotal transition in my life. She helped me identify mindsets that would support me in relaxing into and in embracing this next chapter. Her approach helped me begin to shift from striving to listening, from doing to being. In this episode, we discuss what it means to live seasonally and why wintering is not failure, how to build a relationship with your intuition, reframing structure as something that can support and not suffocate creativity, and the surprising way that creating art brought new clients into her life. Catherine also shares the story of leaving a successful tech career for a life that didn't make sense on paper, but made total sense to her. I love this conversation, and I hope it gives you permission to trust your own inner seasons too. I want to talk a little bit about your career arc and then get into your offerings and the ways that we've worked together. So you had a rich career in tech. You're at Blue Apron and Fab.com, a bunch of other places. Take us back to that chapter. What did life look like on the surface? And then what was like starting to stir underneath?
Yeah, great question. There's a few different layers of textures. I would say the top layer, dominant texture, was actually one of contentment. I was in my 20s, living in New York. I hopped around between a few different startups, but I actually generally had a really positive experience in them. Like my colleagues, I loved, and many of them are lifelong friends that I still keep in contact with. And we hung out a lot after work, and I really, yeah, and I was learning, I was growing. I was actually quite content with a lot. I think the things I probably cared about the most of them were getting checked off the box. So that was kind of like the bigger texture and feelings. Like, I'm actually pretty content right now. And then there was like a more subtle texture of that it wasn't always present, but it was in my mind of like, I don't really aspire to be a head of product. I don't really aspire to be a head of marketing. And I definitely don't aspire to be a CEO running a large company. So then the question was like, okay, well, why am I doing this? Where am I going with it? Right. So that was like a smaller voice. It didn't really bother me that much, but it did kind of pop up every now and then. And then there was a third texture of noticing things I was being drawn to while I was at all of those startups, specifically when I was at Fab and DigitalOcean and Blue Apron, where I was so interested in things like organizing team building experiences or hiring an Enneagram consultant to come do workshops on Enneagram or Anything related to understanding people. Oh, I remember the other one. I was quite eager to interview potential new hires. And specifically, I remember, I don't know if this is actually kosher these days, but I remember giving people Enneagram descriptions and having folks like read paragraphs and
Hmm.
self-diagnose and tell me which sentences resonated with them so I can just better understand their motivations and what they cared about. And so there was this whole theme of like wanting to understand people and how they worked better together and what they cared about that was there. And so those were kind of the three dominant textures happening while I was working in tech. And
It sounds like you were getting a lot of meaning and fulfillment from your work in tech. Yes, you were taking advantage of the opportunity to maybe dive into some of the softer skills that later, became so core to your coaching offer. But I'd be curious, it sounds to me, I'm like, oh, you could have stayed there a long time potentially.
yeah, definitely. So this is where I would say, this is, it's almost like life wanted me to start changing. So early 2016, a few things started catalyzing a shift. Biggest one, I ended an 8-year relationship. And I say that's the biggest one because it probably had me feel things and put me in a bit of a grief pit that I had never
Mm.
experienced before. And so around the same time as the breakup, I felt very called to sign up for a 200-hour yoga teacher training in New York. So I started that, and probably within weeks of that, I had also started practicing meditation
Wow.
and just started practicing like mindfulness period, like journaling. It's almost like I was seeking all of the tools and trying to understand how people navigated this. And all of those were calling my name. This was like early 2016. And so it, a lot of like mindfulness wellness practices, it was less mainstream, I suppose, if the word to describe that.
Hmm.
And someone had asked me to share about my learnings on their podcast about what I was learning on the yoga side, how that bridged with tech. And from that one podcast, someone reached out to me, and within 2 weeks of meeting this guy, I just had a strong feeling I needed to join him in being his co-founder
Hmm.
at a meditation company for pregnant women. And so it was purely just this like strong pull. There was not a lot of logic going into it. I was like, okay, met him. 2 weeks later, I literally gave my 1 month's notice to Blue Apron.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's how strong the pull was. Not fully thought through. So gave my notice, super excited. Uh, and then we start actually really getting in there and working together. And it was my last month at Blue Apron. So I'd go to Blue Apron during the day, in the evenings, we'd come together and work together. My last day at Blue Apron was the auspicious Friday the 13th.
Hmm.
I had this like sinking feeling that we actually weren't fully the right fit as co-founders for this new venture. So on Friday the 13th, I went in and said bye to everyone at Blue Apron. And that evening, I said bye to this other co-founder for this other opportunity.
Wow.
And I woke up the next day with no responsibility, no kids, single, living in New York. And that was like the start of the new era. So looking back on it, there was never a, oh my God, I need to leave Blue Apron. How am I going to do it? It almost just felt like I was being pulled in this direction. And even when I realized that I wasn't the right fit with this co-founder, I didn't feel like I needed to go back to Blue Apron. It felt like my heart was like, okay, like your time has come. And actually, this was the perfect kick in the ass to get you to leave.
Hmm.
And so here we are now. And you're definitely in the void of uncertainty of all of it now.
I think that many of us, if we'd left our job at, given notice at this high flying startup, 2016, Blue Apron was one of the big names in the tech scene at the moment. And then you realize that this next opportunity is not as much of a fit as you think. I mean, what would have been going through my mind was like, oh my God, I made a mistake. I messed this up. How am I going to get my job back at Blue Apron? How am I going to sort this out? But instead, it sounded like you had a large degree of trust and a
Mm.
willingness to flow with, even if it was illogical. And that's something that in our coaching work together, we talked about a lot. But how did you know that this was going according to plan, even though it meant things were crumbling around you?
Yeah. I don't think I ever fully knew with certainty. I think, as you're speaking, it's hard to fully put myself back in that day so many years ago. But as you're speaking, the first thing that came up for me was like, wow, I'm so grateful I had gone through yoga teacher training like 3 months before this all happened, because what that gave me actually was um, community and people and support where I didn't feel like the odd one out trying to do something that felt really different. Like if anything, I had been through months of meeting lots of different people who were living pretty untraditional lives and trying to move into untraditional careers and hanging out in that unknown territory. Um, and maybe part of it's like I felt comfortable because there was other models that had been shown to me that were there. There's part that and part just like it just felt like my soul and my heart wouldn't do anything else. It's like I had to do it. It felt like a strong must. It's like I had already set the ball in motion by giving my notice to Blue Apron. And so I wasn't once that was done, I was like, I felt great about that decision. And then yeah, it was hella scary to be like, man, I'm gonna leave this other thing. Sorry, take it back, guys. Like I'm not actually going to this other place. Um, but also part of me deeply believes that the people that truly were going to support me and be there for me were the ones that were not going to judge and actually be supportive of me. And so um, I had strong conviction that the people that are meant for me will stay, even back then. I think that helped me, and the opportunities and experiences that are meant for me will stay. And probably like some conviction that I would be able to get another product job if I really needed to. So when I left Blue Apron, and I kind of woke up, didn't have any responsibilities, it kind of kicked off probably, I would say, like a year and a half of actually just giving myself space and time to connect back with who am I? What do I want? What do I care about? And a big part of that, the first maybe 4 or 5 months I was in New York, but I had a really strong feeling of just wanting to do a solo backpacking trip and take like a bit of a gap year, as they might call it. And I think that spaciousness of just sitting without so many demands on my time, things I need to do, over structure of responsibilities, which I know not everyone has the privilege of always having, if you have kids or a partner. But my experience was of having that space. Um, you I found I started asking myself the question, like, what do I want in the micro moments? So it's like, what do I want to do today when I was still in New York? Do I want to go to the park? Do I want to go to yoga class? Do I want to read a book? Like, I had the privilege of saving enough and just feeling okay living at least a few months of just really being in the human being phase and not in the human doing. I've been in the
Mm-hmm.
human doing for so long. And when you have to make all those micro decisions every day, because you're not going into an office and you don't have other people's plans on your schedules, you start to almost like train your system to constantly ask yourself that question. What do I want? What do I want to eat? Where do I want to go? Who do I want to see? Do I want to chill? Do I want to not? And then of course, your mind almost starts to think about the macro. What do I want? Big picture. And and so it was becoming clear that one of the bigger things was to actually take some time, travel, solo backpack that year. Uh, that's actually, I would say, looking back on it now, the year that I really deepened my relationship with my intuition, because
Mm.
that was a whole year of literally trusting, not having had a bit of a rough plan, meaning, okay, maybe this country this month, maybe this country that month, flights, hotels, what am I going to do there? All of that. Had no idea. I had my first 4 nights booked of the whole trip. I knew I wanted to start in Myanmar, and then everything else was like some recommendations, but no clear plan after that. And so, when I look back at that year and what it taught me, it was just I constantly had to practice following a gut feeling, what feels good, what feels right, and then actually acting on it, and then seeing, was that a good decision? Did I like it? Did that feel aligned? And so it's this like practice of building trust with your own intuition. That was basically that year for me.
It resonates so much with what you're describing in terms of that feeling of something pulling you in a new direction. Um, I know many high achievers, we rely on logic, analysis, and control. Uh, in our own coaching container, I know that I was really focused on trying to prioritize my intuitive knowing, feeling more comfortable showing up authentically, and then beginning to express myself creatively, authentically. And we spent a lot of time helping me reconnect with my intuition, with my higher self. Uh, can you talk a little bit about what you've noticed working with high achievers on some of the challenges of bringing together intuition and intellect?
To cultivate that with folks I'm coaching, it's figuring out and structuring practices so that whoever I'm coaching can build that trust with their intuition themselves. So first there's almost like the reconnecting to the actual voice piece, which so many different ways and tools to do that. One of them, I love guiding people through visualizations to help them tap into whatever they want to call this part of themselves, like their authentic self, their intuition, their inner leader, universe, God, whatever it is. It's all the same thing. You pick your name that most resonates. First, it's like helping someone tap into that. There's many different tools on that front. And then when they start to feel that, building practices to actually help them listen to it, act on it in small ways, see the impact of it, build that trust in, rinse and repeat. That's there. So yeah, actually, I'm going to pause there. I think that was a big part on the intuition front that really stands out for me.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about those practices, but before we do, it sounds like you already had a decent relationship to your intuition, even in feeling the pull to leave Blue Apron at first for the startup. And then, when the startup didn't feel like the right fit, noticing, right? Noticing that it didn't feel like the right fit, and then actually honoring that wisdom by deciding, like, actually, this isn't what I'm going to jump into. Do Did you feel at the time like you had a good relationship with your intuition, or was that new for you when you made the decision to not go with this new startup and actually go on this backpacking journey instead?
I feel like the language around it, even relationship with my intuition back then, I don't even know if I would have used that language. Like, I don't even know what I was doing. Before our chat today, I was actually looking back at a few posts from when I was on that trip back in
Mm.
2016, just to like kind of re-immerse myself in my headspace back then. And something I actually wrote about a lot coming out of the trip was I did start using the language of intuition, but I didn't even know what I was doing back then. And so in retrospect, I was like, yeah, I guess that is kind of what I was doing. I wouldn't have necessarily called it that. I'm an Enneagram 7, and I love freedom and fun and delights. And I think part of my energetic blueprint makeup is that I have a large capacity for joy, and that I actually just generally uh, am trying to maximize joy and fun and play in my decision making. Not everyone has this energetic makeup, but I think that's to my advantage, where because I have that makeup and I'm already leaning towards that. I was almost like the ideal outcome of fun and play and experience and novelty from this trip outweighed all of the fears. And of course,
Mm.
I had fears and they were there. I remember I was like, how financially, how's this going to work? And then I just gave a bone for my brain to chew. And I remember making an Excel and just proving to myself, okay, if I don't work for X number of months, like what's in the bank? Is this going to be okay? And I just did that exercise, and all of a sudden, like that fear was totally gone. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I've given that part of my brain something to chew on. Um, so yeah, I kind of I forgot what the original question was, but I was so pulled towards that fun and that play at the time, and I think I really was following my intuition. That I wouldn't necessarily have said those words in those moments. I probably just been like, that just sounds like the most fun thing to do right now. So hell yeah, let's do it. Sign me up.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I am a Enneagram. I forget if it's a two wing three or a three wing two. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
much more in the obligation side of things and the work side of things. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
I'm cultivating a relationship with joy and play and um as we're talking about it, I do think that that joy and play place actually is pretty close to our intuition, and is
Mm-hmm.
pretty close to
Yeah.
that voice of whether we want to call it God or the universe or the higher self and the invitations that it's offering us.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I guided a client recently in the visualization, and she saw her inner child. And I was like,
Mm.
of course, that is the feeling of her intuition for her is that strong inner child coming out, leaning towards that joy and delight that's there.
Mm.
So, yeah.
The other thing that I really enjoyed from our work together, you encouraged me to do a journaling exercise, letters from my higher self to see what messages wanted to come through. And then you still brought this almost product manager approach to things, though, where we then
Mm.
would structure a series of experiments with like
Mhm.
pre-mortems and feedback retros after to practice stepping into our intuitions, invitations, and following those. Can you talk a little bit about that method or approach?
Yeah. So I have come to learn also through my astrology chart that for those familiar with astrology, I have 5 planets in Capricorn. And Capricorn is the archetype of structure, uh, and uh, yeah, the big archetypes like just having that structure so that these can flow through it. And with that as a dominant energy in me, like I love having process and structure and having quantitative, qualitative measures. And I think it's just a natural instinct in me to want to bring that to others, right? Every coach coaches differently in their own unique ways. For me, it's very natural to gravitate towards having structure because that makes me feel safe and at ease and that I can relax into what's
Mm.
happening. So yeah, there was that desire in me, and also knowing a little bit how your brain works, and you're coming out of corporate world where there was likely a lot of structure there too, and likely KPIs and OKRs and goals and numbers and metrics. And so for me, I find really depends on the client, but often someone who comes from a background like yours, it can be helpful uh, to have that structure there so that it feels like there's a process, right? And it gives that left side part of our brain that's like, well, what's going on? That wants some control, that wants some certainty, just a way to understand what's happening so it doesn't feel so floaty, airy fairy up here, and that it feels grounded in a structured place. And so that it's like part my natural instincts want that because I like that, and part kind of seeing who I'm working with. And some people want more or less of it, and some people actually, from the get go, in my intake forms are like, I need structure. Please give me structure that are there. And I think actually that's why a large number of people they see that in me as well, and they want that when they're deciding who they want to work with. And it's something I've had to embrace about myself, that I actually do have specialties in logistics and structure. And that's just how my brain works in that very linear way as well. Which was something I actually pushed away for a long time. Like I didn't actually like being the one that was the linear thinker, or that was the one that was good at logistics, because I felt there was a judgment in me that that was boring or annoying or things that I just didn't want to be good at. And so it's something that I've worked on trying to just own and integrate. It's like, actually, that's just who I am. And what I love to do is bringing that structure into experiments that are there and coming up with creative ways to ground whatever's coming up intuitively so that it feels practical and accessible.
Yeah, that definitely was part of your offer that really appealed to me. And I was just laughing to myself as you were describing, your own aversion to like embracing that more structured side of you. Because when we think about, you know, stepping into purpose or meaning or freedom, we are usually trying to escape the OKRs and the KPIs and structure, right? But I think that for many of us who are high achievers, or who are in tech or in some of these more structured professions, that also is our comfort place, and that also is part of our superpower. So I think it's really cool that you are able to honor both the intuitive side of you and the structured side of you. And it seems that, that's part of your medicine in working with your clients, is helping folks feel comfortable bringing both of those together. I think that when we're going through transition, so many of us feel this urge of like, oh, I have to burn it all down, right? I can't do anything that is consistent with how I used to be. I'm going to step into something that's completely different. I'd be curious your reflections on that from working with your clients.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, that feeling of wanting to just burn it all down and just fully escape from it, it's something I've felt in myself, and I've seen others also feel the same way. And the principle I kind of go back to is like, we each all have masculine and feminine energies. So it's, yes, this current ways of society and life in startups is like heavily emphasizing the masculine side. And that's probably causing a lot of desire to want to rebel from that when we get out of that, because there's that accepts the feminine flow and ease and freedom that wants to emerge. And um, and we're not in balance when we're all feminine, and we're not in balance when we're all masculine. So uh, it's really finding them together. And actually, one example of this, very practically for my life, is even how I approach exercising. And in one way, I can see like the strength training as like a little bit more of a masculine approach and needing to balance so that I'm not all yoga or not all strength training, but like balancing both energies in me together. So I think it is normal to almost like go from one extreme to the other. And I also believe in the power of like our own intuitive knowings to help guide us back to somewhere in the middle. And that it's not bad. It's not quote bad if we lean all the way to one side and feel it. And sometimes we kind of might need to fully lean to that side to then be like, oh, here's the guardrail. And let me now, I have the visceral knowing that that doesn't feel right. So let me like incorporate a little bit more of the masculine. Or if I'm leaning too much into the masculine, let me incorporate a little bit more of the feminine. So I'm a big believer in once you have that cultivation of that voice within to almost allow whatever experience you're in to not be bad, good, right, or wrong, but just to be the experience and then to listen and help you bring you back into what balance is for you now.
Yeah. So I think that when a lot of people are going through a transition, we can feel really off balance, right? So we're off balance in the old way and haven't yet found our balance in, whatever is new. And that space between what was and what comes next is so disorienting. How can we soften into that space uh, and feel more at ease with that feeling of being imbalanced?
One particular mindset shift that I have personally been trying to cultivate is actually seeing our life and where we're at in seasons. So what I mean by that is there can be one view where we're like, we have to constantly be in summer season, always blooming and constantly doing and constantly making money and constantly working hard on all these things. But what if we actually don't? What if there are seasons we go through? And maybe you have a summer season for a couple years. And then actually maybe you have a bit of wintering where you're going inwards. You might not be working. You're doing other, instead of external work, you're doing a lot of internal work and you're coming back inside. And that wintering season might be a month. It might be 6 months. It might be a year. It might be a couple years, but trusting in the value that that season is giving you. And each season has its usefulness and purpose and what it's doing for the crops underneath the soil and things you can't see and how it comes back every year for harvest. And just think of it in seasons almost, at least for me, gives me a bit of a permission and exhale to be like, whew, cool. Like I'm going to own and embrace my autumn and winter season for myself right now. And not put so much pressure to constantly be in summer. Like I would even say now I'm starting to come out of winter, but I've been in a winter season the last maybe most of this year. Definitely in a portal of uncertainty and a lot of transitions and changes. And I just come back to remembering, cool, I'm in my winter right now. It's not going to last forever. Seasons change. Um, and that gives me a little bit of an exhale. So I'd say that's one principle. And then another quotes and principle. I've been coming back to this since 2016. So 10 years, this has still been front and center for me. Is a variation of the quotes from Yale doctoral that says, life is like driving at night in the fog. You can only see as far as your headlights go, but you can make the whole journey and way there. I love that so much because to me, that's like, okay, imagine you're at point A and you see B, you have an intuitive hunch what B is, but you're feeling really scared to move to B because you feel like you need to know what Z is before you just take the step to B. But actually, all you need to do is trust that if you take the step to B, C will appear. There's not really ever an end destination, but you can continuously make your way there and move forward and feel aligned in your path just by trusting in that next small step and that you don't need to have the full big picture and just like bias to action with that tiny step can lead you that way there versus feeling this pressure of like, what is the big thing that I need to do? Um, those are two principles I think have really bigger things that have supported me a lot in softening into the unknown.
Quote is so beautiful, and I think I need to put that up on my wall too. Because right now, as I am going through this journey, similarly, all I know is that I need to write. And right now, I want to be in conversation with folks, which is why I'm doing this interview series. And so many people ask me, what are you building towards, or where is this going to go? And I ask myself that too. Sometimes I see parts of my brain of like, oh, do I need to do like an audience analysis? And do I need to come up with a 5-year plan? Do I need to trademark something? No, chill, trust. The next step will reveal itself when it's time. And if nothing's showing up yet, that means it's just not time yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll even share a story. It's pretty alive for me in this
Mm.
season of transition where and just like a peek behind the scenes in my life that I had a very strong feeling a few months ago that all I needed to be spending my time on was making things and sharing them, and specifically making physical art and sharing about it. And uh, I decided to lean into the 100-Day Project. It's something I had done 8 years ago, and I just had a strong, strong feeling I needed to restart that. So I'm in the middle of it now. I'm probably like somewhere in the 50s of doing it. And before I started, I was probably going through one of the biggest transitions earlier this year ever of ending a relationship, moving out. There's a lot of things happening there. And I hadn't really focused so much of my attention on necessarily growing my business, work stuff. It was kind of secondary, tertiary, and my lack of energy and pouring into it also translated where there was a few months that like most of the time there's like a steady stream of folks like reaching out to work together, and there was like a good chunk of months where it was quiet, crickets during this period. I wasn't surprised, I wasn't worried about it, but I just noticed that it was there. Fast forward to that knowing, I was like, all right, cool. I need to start this 100-Day Project. All I need to know is I'm spending my time doing this. Everything will sort itself out. Sure enough, within the first 3 weeks of me literally just sharing, posting about things that I was making and creating for this 100-Day Project, I had 5 people reach out to me in 3 weeks
Oh my
asking
God.
to work together.
Wow.
There was zero posts about me advertising my services, zero posts about like my coaching. I was literally talking about collages I was making and the creative process and going through it. And I think it was like the universe's very funny way of being like, see, here you go. Do you want more proof? Like you're on the right path. Um,
Mm.
and I just share that with you because I think it's so yeah, sometimes it's like the it doesn't sometimes make a lot of sense. Or, people think about, oh, like, oh, I need to get more clients. I need to like do this and promo that and market this and do all these logical things. And sometimes for me, I was like, nope, just need to make some art and share about my process with it. And then and then things happened. And so, to me, you can interpret that many ways, but to me, I kind of see that as like the universe being like, great job, keep going, keep sharing, keep following that nudge.
Yeah, I'm reminded of the word resonance, right, which comes from sound and music, and the idea that when we start putting our music, our unique gifts out to the world, the people who need to hear it will hear it and will want to join us in making that music. So if someone who's listening here is right at the beginning of their transition journey, they're at the point where they know that something needs to shift or they're stepping into the unknown, what would you most want them to hear?
Trust yourself, and actually, maybe even before that, really develop your relationship, cultivate and develop your relationship with that voice, that intuition, whatever you want to call that part in you. Um, because it's your relationship to that will help you weather the storms, the inevitable ups and downs, highs and lows, that will come. So I'd say that from an internal standpoint, and then externally, like, you don't need to do it alone. Like, find support, find people that you resonate with, that feel values aligned. You don't need to convince others why you're doing things. I know that was a big part of my journey because a lot of my family was like, "What are you doing? You don't have a real job," when I was starting. Um, and you can fiercely protect who you share your journey with, and what story you want to share with them, uh, and find people that will support and nourish you and celebrate and cherish whatever non-logical, non-linear thing you're thinking about doing just because you have a strong feeling and your heart's in it, that spark is there. Um, so yeah, just having that supportive community around you and being discerning on who you invite into that process, and that you can go through this process with help and support externally, and then internally bolster that connection to your own spirit and voice within.
Mm. I think that's great. That's great advice. And um, yeah, I just want to say thank you to you for being that person for me. You know, we started working together after I'd left my job, but I was in that scary in between state where I'm like, wait, what am I? Who am I now? When I don't have this big title or this big job. And you really held me in the not knowing with so much love and so many perceptive reflections, but then also so many wonderful pushes to try to do things differently. And I felt that in our work together, I really developed a lot of trust in myself. So the ability to hear my intuition, the ability to start to honor it, to give logic and reason a job as well, rather than being like, oh, we're just going to do like the illogical, airy fairy thing. You really have this magic at helping people bring it all together. And because of your encouragement in both energetically, structure wise, you helped me find the confidence to really start on this journey that I'm on now with offering meditation, building community, writing, whatever comes next. I mean, other than having my daughter in this past year, you know, this journey that I've been on has just been one of the biggest joys of the past year or so. So I just want to say thank you so much for your presence and for your support.
Thank you. Such powerful words and receiving all of that. Yeah, it's just such a privilege to be with this journey, be on this journey with you, because really we're both walking each other back to that place in ourselves, right? You walk me back to my place, I walk you back, and we both have our own beautiful gifts, unique gifts in what we offer. And so I'm grateful for that symbiotic relationship, the ecosystem we've built. And that's actually everywhere in any relationship that's out there. We each have our medicine we give to each other, no matter what roles we're playing for each other. It's all there.
I think
Thank
that's
you,
the
Allie.
perfect note to end on, my dear. If people want to find you and go deeper, where should they go?
You can go to my website, www.catherinepao.com, or Instagram at Catherine Pao, or you can send me a note, catherine.pao@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, my dear.
Thanks, Allie.
Thanks so much for listening to Practically on Purpose with Allie Canton. If you're enjoying the show, the best way to support it is to subscribe, leave a review, or forward it to someone else who might need it. You can also follow along or reach out anytime at alliecanton.substack.com. I read every note, and it means so much more than you know. Special thanks to Mutual Benefit for the beautiful music that brings us in and out each week. You can find more of their work wherever you listen to music. And until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and stop living someone else's success story and step into your own.